term 2022-23 with their presence. Thank you. Before we embark on journey of this year's event for upskilling and energizing technical sessions, let me introduce myself as host for this meeting, C. Abhishek Gupta, current executive committee member of BCICI. In today's session, we will begin with the presentation by Mr. Parulkar, followed by the quiz by our quiz master, CA Sumit Khupkar. For the quiz, you will need two devices, one to see the question and one to answer the questions. We will show the question on screen and then you can answer the same with the code on your other device. I suggest everybody to keep their devices handy and install the Kahoot app beforehand. I would also like to request all the members that they shall keep their mic on mute through the session. And if you have any questions or queries, you can kindly message them in the chat box. At the end, I shall address all the questions to Mr. Parulkar. Now I invite our chairperson, CA Sharmila Seth, to deliver the welcome address. CA Sharmila, please take over the control.
Hi, thanks a lot, C. Abhishek, for that opening address. So, dear speaker, Mr. Nikhil Parulkar, and all the dear members, a very warm welcome to you all for this very first technical session of the new term. Am I audible, right?
Yes.
Please continue.
Yes, Sharmila.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So first of all, let me wish you all a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all the members and your families as well. Right now I'm in India and especially in Pune, and the festival atmosphere here is just majestic. You know, it has its own way of celebrating the festival, and really one needs to be here to experience this. Anyways, happy Ganesh Chaturthi to one and all. May Ganpati Bappa bless us all. Before I go into today's session, a very brief, a quick brief on the events which we have conducted last month, and also the events which are planned for the coming month. Okay, before that, a very brief note on the VOCA event, the World Congress of Accountants. Message from us, and also reminders to register for this 21st World Congress of Accountants, which will be held in India for the first time in November, from 18th to 21st of November. Believe me, this is going to be one of the finest and glorious accounting conferences in the history of the profession. Also, it's going to be an incredible opportunity to network and learn, with the opportunity to listen to the world-class speakers. Also, to make this experience more memorable for our members, we have extended this tour with a 2-day trip to a hill station, a beautiful hill station, Lonavala. We have tried to get best deals and best facilities for the members, and we'll try to do it more if we get more registrations. We are also trying to have a delegation to attend this conference with some representation from the Indian Embassy and the local bodies to accompany us. So just to update on this one, as per the message which we have received from ICI, there are only limited seats available and the registration is going to close anytime soon. So my sincere request to all the members to not to miss this opportunity and register as soon as possible. We will be keeping it open for now, but we will close it as and when we receive the update from ICI on the registration status. And yes, definitely we will be keeping you posted on that, but requesting you all to register as soon as possible and not to miss on this opportunity. With that, coming back to what we have done so far with the new team in the first month of this year, we started the month with a launch message of the current team, highlighting our vision and our mission for the coming year, followed by a meeting with the Indian ambassador, with the Indian Embassy officials, briefing them about the same as well. The new executive committee, we started our term with a very noble initiative on the theme Thrust Quenchers, which we did along with the Manav Dharma Group as well as ICRF on 5th of August, wherein the lunch packets were distributed to almost 500 workers with a special message of staying dehydrated during this summer months. Raksha Bandhan messages were sent out by our member CA Vinit Maru and his sister on behalf of BCICI on the Raksha Bandhan. As a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, BCSI successfully conducted a 7.5 kilometer race themed as Azadi Ki Relay Race on 12th of August, where the members and their families participated with full josh, holding our own very own Tiranga and dressed in one of the tricolors. After that, BCSI members Sri Bharti, CA Jay Kumar, CA Sanjeev, CA Karthik Jagannathan, CA Akhila, and CA Vicky Walker wished BCSI members on the 76th Independence Day by presenting a very beautiful patriotic song. Independence Day celebration was concluded by hosting Nation First Freedom Fest event on August 19th, where the kids participated and showcased their wonderful talent and patriotism through the performances. Our member, CA Mitesh Katira, wished us all on Krishna Janmashtami on 19th of August, which was followed by the first quiz night of the new term on 21st of August by Maya Sharma on the theme 15th August, before, after, and beyond. Our member, CA Karthik Jagannathan, extended his wishes to us today on the auspicious occasion of Ganesh Chaturdashi. And finally, we are concluding the month with a technical session on forensic and market intelligence with a focus on banking and finance sector by Mr. Nikhil Parulkar. I'm sure we are all going to enjoy today's session. As regards the upcoming events for the next month, a CA orientation session has been planned for the for the school students on 9th of September, followed by youth leadership session by our member CA Meenakshi Sundaram for the children of members on 17th of September. AGM along with a technical session will be held in last week of September. Other than this, we also have many more events planned which will be announced as and when we go. So here was an update on what we did so far and what we are planning in the coming month. Coming back to now today's session on forensic and market intelligence. As we all know, fraud has been there for years. It's almost as early as mankind, and it's very surprising that the first earliest instance was recorded in around 300 BC. Over the years, this has only increased. Only the ways and methods have changed. Recent one being more driven by technology and the cyber-enabled fraud. As we all know, frauds cannot be eliminated by its very nature, but it can definitely be contained with the proper risk management and internal control frameworks, which can also assist in detecting frauds at an early stage. I don't want to talk more into this, because to talk more in detail on this topic, we have the expert in the field, Mr. Nikhil Parulkar. So once again, welcome Nikhil, and I'm sure we are going to have amazing session with you today.
Thank you, Sharma.
And so I don't want to delay it any further, and so without any further ado, I'll hand back the control to C. Abhishek to take it forward and introduce Mr. Nikhil and take the session forward. Thank you so much, and enjoy the session today. Over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah. Thank you, Shamila. Thank you. It was a lovely message. So I would like to start with a quote that knowledge is having the right answer and intelligence is asking the right question. And to ensure prevention of fraud and to understand the reaction to evidence of illegal acts, one requires both knowledge and intelligence in the domain of forensics and market intelligence, especially when we are talking about the banking industry. The global forensics technology market was valued at $15.2 billion in 2020 and is projected to reach $44.3 billion by 2030. To understand what is the driving force behind these drastic changes in this ever-evolving market, we have an eminent personality with us today, Mr. Nikhil Anand Parulkar. Mr. Parulkar is the CEO of Accurus Consulting, former VP and head of Market Intelligence Unit of RBL Bank. He has 19 plus years of experience in banking, consulting with expertise in forensics, fraud investigations, and training. He is also the author of various articles and publications and visiting faculty at various institutes, including IIM Raipur. So with the magnificent introduction, let's learn about the forensics and market intelligence now from our speaker, Mr. Anand Parulkar. Mr. Nikhil Anand Parulkar. Over to you, Mr. Parulkar.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Sharmila. So welcome in this evening. So without further delay, we'll start off with the session. So I'll just share the slides so that we can take it forward. Okay, just give me a minute. So you are able to see the slide now, basically? Yes?
Yes,
It
yes.
is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect, perfect. So the today's subject will be forensics and market intelligence. So I will take you through the entire session on how this concept of merging forensics with our market intelligence have started since 2011. My focus in the BFSI sector will be specifically from the India-based environment because, the major chunk of frauds in the BFSI sector originated or started from 2010-11. And to be fair, they are still ongoing. We have not seen the end of it yet. And they are continuously tumbling. So if you are, like we say, skeletons in the closet, and one fine day you will hear in one of the Economic Times newspapers that this much 1,000 crore fraud has happened, 320 crore, and the numbers add up. Now, although the frauds may be old, but certain environments have changed during this decade. So we will take it one by one, how we have merged in the banking sector, the forensic audit profile with market intelligence. Now, this is based on pure experience over the last decade. Initially, how we had to get confidence of RBI. See, ultimately, as you know, banking is a regulated sector in India, heavily regulated sector in India. And RBI, as a regulator, has to be convinced with how, because majority of the time we observe forensics is a post activity. But when we do a forensic audit, we also see certain learnings behind it. And that will be ideally our agenda today, right? So I'll just take you through that. So our agenda is to understand the origins of how in India, post GFC and Satyam, that is from last decade. So I'll be taking you through a decade in a very concise form, but with critical components. Learnings from the forensics, the initial 2 to 3 years, that is from 2010 to 2013, our learnings on how post forensic audit, what else could be done. 3, emergence of market intelligence 2018 onwards. Because every project always is becoming a pilot project. It cannot be implemented. It is sometimes considered to be good to have, but not must to have. So from being good to have, we became must to have in 2018. And today at 2022, it is becoming a critical component of RBI's audit of the financial sector. So what constitutes market intelligence and how we have merged it with the YH Malegam committee recommendations. YH Malegam committee recommendations means RBI recommendations by Mr. YH Malegam is also a chartered accountant, a very eminent chartered accountant in India. And he is a part of that committee to provide certain every year on along with the monetary policy on how to control frauds and its methodologies. And finally, we are going to do some 2 case studies to give you an idea. After doing all this, how we were able to, as rightfully said by Sharmila, frauds cannot be eliminated. We aren't saying we are here to eliminate frauds, but yes, how do we contain it? These case studies will help you to understand how the combination of forensics and market intelligence helped us to reduce the frauds. So I would like to start off with this first quote. Some people drink from the fountain of knowledge, others just gargle. And why am I mentioning it? Is that after spending 19 years in the banking sector, especially in consumer and wholesale banking fraud environment investigation, I am still at loss. Fortunately, or rather unfortunately, depending upon how you look at it, But yes, in spite of lot of knowledge or lot of sharings, yes, this happens. After all, banking is into the business of doing business. So somewhere down the line, some things get missed and some things get caught. But to give you a larger picture, I thought this would be the best quote to start with. So as you know, first stage was September 2008, which was Lehman. Lehman's ripple effects were slowly spreading, and the first hit Indian shores in January 2009. And that was when Mr. Ramalinga Raju wrote a letter to the SEBI, Security Exchange Board of stating that I have committed a fraud. It was an open letter. So from there, forensic audit started gaining momentum. But it was a very nascent stage at that point. While the frauds are still happening, it was not given its due recognition. And there is a reason for that. It's a new environment. Very few before 2008 also would have heard the concept forensic accounting in India. And very rarely would have anyone thought that the banking sector in the next decade, as I said, 2009 and 10, the years that I'm talking, from 2010 till 2022, it's almost 10, 12 years, a decade, one full decade, we will be experiencing so many frauds. Before that, there could have been frauds. It's not that the frauds were never there, but the concept was not there to investigate. It was more to do with the legal statutes rather than a pure investigation. So the first question was, banks decided fraud based on the loss to the organization or as a loss to the bank who is a custodian of public money. That was the basic definition of how we as investigators within the BFSI sector, when I say BFSI, I just don't mean banks. I mean banks, financial services sector, as well as insurance. So that means stock markets or any other mutual fund. Fraud is what happens when the company loses. Company also is borrowing money like a bank, even a mutual fund. HNIs contribute to funds. From there, they are invested in some, in the startups or various other environments. But unfortunately, something goes wrong. And it's possible, it's life. Things do go wrong. I'm not saying that. But fraud as a definition was never there. The only definition of fraud which I encountered in my career when I go to a police station in India or when I go to an enforcement authority in India, or I call it as Apex Law Enforcement Authority, is IPC section 420 or cheating. That was the only thing that they said. And over a period of time, certain amended sections in that criminal act. But fraud as a definition was not mentioned in any of these environments. What changed is would ideally be your first question. Satyam brought a tectonic shift. From there, it moved slowly over the next 2 to 3 years, where Companies Bill 2013 was started taking shape. So while we were doing investigations for these frauds that were happening, something was happening in the background. I'm sure as most of you are chartered accountants over here, you would agree that even the Companies Act 1956 never defined fraud as a terminology till date, right? So as a terminology, there was no definition. And in legal environment, it was considered cheating. So you understand that there is a gap here. Even if you catch a fraudster or you catch a corporate fraud or even a consumer fraud, you would still be at loss of action because the legal environment is totally different. Enforcement environment is totally different. And finally, how does a bank explain to a law enforcement how the fraud has happened? Let me honestly tell you, I have one small example in between that when I used to go to a police station to register an FIR in a housing loan fraud, first of all, the investigating officer would look at me and say, oh, this is a case of cheating. Your bank was cheated. Okay. So it is of a lesser value. The fraud is of lesser value. And he would come back to justify stating, look, there are much larger cases that I have in hand. You have just lost 1.5 to 2 crores, right? Your bank. And your bank is big, you can manage that. Now, that was an attitude I'm referring to in those days. Today, post 2010, when you see big numbers, 7,000 crores, the mindset changed. The thought process changed immediately. And that is where we started getting traction. So while we were doing these cases, while we were assisting law enforcement also, the company's bill actually made our job a little easier. So now, as we said, so in fraud, in a layman's term, would be like our profile as a banker today in risk management or fraud control or market intelligence is that of Sherlock Holmes meets corporate India. That is what is in short that I can say, how we define as fraud in the BFSI sector. Second, fraud is a legal term. Frankly speaking, this is why I have put it because of my experiences in the past. It is legal term, but of lesser value. No, not anymore. We have taken these engagements, or rather these fraud scenarios very seriously. 2013 bill was approved in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in the parliament in 2014 or mid 14-15. And this is the perfect definition in section 447 of the act. And this goes either ways, depending on which side of the bed you want to wake up in the morning, this goes both ways. If you read this definition, you will agree. Fraud in relation to the affairs of a company or any body corporate includes any act, omission, concealment of any fact, or abuse of position committed by any person or any other person with connivance in any manner, with intent to deceive, to gain undue advantage, or to injure interests of company or its shareholders or its creditors or any other person. So today, when you have a scenario in India where a company becomes a non-performing asset or a fraud is detected by which a company becomes NPA, even a single 1 rupee creditor person also can go to NCLT and file an insolvency case. That is the power. This definition has defined it, that it is no longer just cheating. There are a lot of facets to it, and that we will take it in the further slides as we go. So creditor or any person, whether or not there is any wrongful gain or a wrongful loss. So it's not just about someone gaining it. It's also about someone losing it. So it's like a double-edged sword, as you see now. But the biggest problem that we faced here, which I marked in the red for purpose, very intentional purpose, is intent. Now, although the definition is very good from a forensic auditor's viewpoint, it makes a life much easier, but intent from a legal parlance is subjective in nature. And that's why majority of the time, our understanding of post our forensic audits that we did, our learnings that were there, we found that majority of the time financial crimes or frauds, as we term it in India also, financial crimes, become circumstantial in nature. And that is becoming our biggest hurdle. So while the legal course goes on, there is a big problem. Now that the fraud has happened, the basic thing that we are doing today is recovery. We are looking at asset tracing engagements. We are doing as NCLT and legal part, everything. But that put us in a thought process that there are certain red flags, which while doing the audit, we found out. If these red flags could be detected pre-transaction, that would deter the frauds from happening. So now that we have had a scenario We learn from it. So what is forensic auditing or forensics, as we say today in the BFSI sector? If you ask anybody in India about how the BFSI sector or banking sector by and large look at a forensic auditor's role as demanded by the regulator RBI, this is how it goes. A practice of utilizing accounting, auditing, and investigative skills to assist in litigation procedures related to financial fraud and misconduct. While this may be a standard general term, this has changed. Theoretically, I agree. Even I think even in ICAI, they have a particular standard of forensic accounting that the terminology will more or less, the general term will be much more similar, but its usability in the BFSI is different. So that is how we will look at it, how different it becomes. So by theoretical and by definition, forensic means belonging to or having application in the court of law. That's the logical point. Now, most of the time when we used to do forensic audit as a consulting organization for a bank whose borrower has cheated them or has, as usual, conducted a fraud, it was more or less a post activity. The bank has already given up. Okay. Now they have to go to the legal route. And going to that legal route, they need a report, they need an investigation. And let me honestly tell you, I'm not saying as 18 years experience, internal fraud investigation teams proved to be useless. I'm saying with all heavy heart here, but yes, internal fraud investigation teams proved useless. So somewhere down the line, we had to use our forensic skill sets. But again, here comes the problem. How many would have these skill sets available within the system? So you have a demand and supply problem. So that is one aspect, separate aspect, but it is an aspect. So this activity became a post activity. And when we used to do a post activity for these same banks, as I said, I spent some time in consulting before I joined the banking again. But so you can say, just for the sake of variety, you can say in heart, I'm still always a banker. And then I put my hat as a forensic auditor. So I also understood that concept that we are doing everything when the loan goes bad. Why are we not doing anything? So then we studied the internal parameters and, we realized that forensic activity can be done as a post activity. But the most important part which we need to use is deterrence. So how do we deter? Deterrence works in two ways. One, the banker's side, that is the lenders or the bank. Second is the borrower. You need to know how to deter both. I know I hope you're getting what I'm saying. When I say both, as you don't go over the board and start lending for a borrower who doesn't deserve it. And at the same point, you don't allow the borrower to take an advantage of you by window dressing your accounts or, various other situations that normally the borrower tends to do. See, they try to do it through a methodology called CBM, which we term it as confidence building measures. And that is something that you need to spot early on. There is no point once the money goes from your account, you try to spot problems and then say, oh, now what do we do? So that is what the forensic accounting profile in a BFSI sector looks like. So we are not here to investigate after the scenario happens. We are using the forensic skill sets to prevent it and deter it. So what do we require in the BFSI? Accounting skills plus auditing skills plus understanding of economics. That is, when I say economics, not the typical macroeconomic level, we are saying sectoral economics. So if I am lending to a commodity sector, what are the on-ground narrative? Or if I am lending to a gems and jewelry sector, what are my issues? Or if I am lending to an airline or auto ancillary sector, how do I look at it? So this understanding is critically important. Plus, geopolitics. I'm sure you will be having a doubt in your mind. I normally get this from a lot of people when I do trainings, that what is the use of a geopolitics or understanding politics in investigation or in forensic accounting? So I'll explain that concept to you, why it is important. And with a fancy example also. And finally, statistical data. And last but not the least, your on-ground investigation skills. So forensic accountants in today's environment, when we work inside a bank, this is the skill sets that we require. Okay. Secondly is an equal and important ability to react quickly and communicate financial information in a clear, concise manner. So I'll just give a small example when I give these type of pointers to you to look at it in a holistic view. So let me give one example. I cannot name the entity in India because for obvious reasons, but I'll give you a kind of a background of this investigation, how we did this assignment. Okay. So first important part is this proposal for a lending was in media and entertainment sector. Okay. Now this is based out of Tamil Nadu. This assignment or this proposal had come from Tamil Nadu. Okay, Chennai based Tamil Nadu. Now when this proposal came, the proposal was good. All the financials and everything was given by the business teams. Proposal was made. A preliminary business risk assessment was also done. The ratios, the spreads, how much loan to be sanctioned, what is the interest rate, cost of funds, everything was done by them. That was first part, stage one, done. Okay. Stage two, it came to the credit risk assessors, people who look at the credit risk fundamentals of the business. Now, after looking at it, there were a lot of companies. Now, when you say media and entertainment, there are a lot of angles to it. That's why I said economics is important. You need to know how the on-ground works. Now, when we say media and entertainment, it means that companies' promoters owned theaters, they were funding films, they were also doing shows. So the question of how the actual on-ground work happens is not known. The numbers may give you an idea, but what goes on in the ground is very rarely known. So now we started working on these parameters. After these parameters, what we realized was that the lending, most importantly, which we will be doing, will be going to extend theaters in Tamil Nadu. So there will be multiple screen theaters, single screen theaters, and the money that we will be giving over the next 3 years. And it was not a small amount. I can give you an approximation. It was 125 crores. Okay. It was supposed to be given for over 3 years period, like a term loan, probably. And the structure and the securities were being worked upon. The funny fact is, the credit risk assessor, he was a chartered accountant himself. So he came to me and he said to me that, you know what, I can't get any head or tail of this business. The only comfort level that the business teams are drawing to give this loan of 125 crores is that the entire cash flow of the entire sales of tickets online, offline, and everything will come to our bank. So that is the comfort level that they are getting, but I can't understand how this business is working. I have no clue how theaters work. The numbers may give you an idea, but that is a generic view, isn't it? They don't go a deep dive. So we said, we're fine, we will work this out. So we have a very good background of how and I'm sure some of you may be knowing how, the film industry in Tamil Nadu works. It works in tandem with politics. It is a very known fact. It works in tandem. So we started that let us hit a different side of the business. We will look at the politics side. So when we saw whom are the promoters associated with, there are two major political parties over there. And we were trying to establish or build a picture of the promoter, the management, and the company. Many of these individuals, promoters, and later the SBOs. SBO is significant beneficial holders or ultimate beneficial owners. And we found a lot of cross holdings and a lot of overall environment which we were not comfortable, because we don't know whose money is going, who owns this company. So that is where we started working in a larger extent to get an idea. And then we came to know through the directors, the shareholders, and everyone who is connected to whom. And finally, we made a logical conclusion that it is connected, or the UBO, after 4 layers of shareholding, belongs to a particular politician from an opposition party. This was the logic. Then comes the idea that we have found something called as a PEP exposure. PEPEX, politically exposed persons exposure. So we had to mention, as per RBI guidelines, we mentioned it. Now here comes the problem. All this is fine. All this is doable. Should we or should we not give it to them? That was the question. The only argument working in their favor, or the business's favor in the bank, was cash flow is coming. It is going to be regular. Everyone watches films. Everyone does. Cash flow is coming. If the cash flow is coming, there is nothing to worry about. That was not the way. Secondly, they depended upon credit rating agencies. 3 credit rating agencies, AA, and one of them, by the way, if I don't know whether you will agree or not, credit rating agencies are the last to know if anything has gone wrong in the company, right? I hope you agree, but my experience over the decade is that. So I said, whether it is AA, AAA, India is a country where you have what, 70 companies who are AAA. That is no logic over here. So don't count that. But for the sake of argument, as I say, you will look at that. And we said that, you know, this is a business where we cannot work and we have a heavy political exposure. And one point we mentioned, in the next 6 months, Tamil Nadu is going out for elections. This is going to be a big game. So if we lend now, we also understand the conflicts between a business and politics here. We will not be able to figure out what goes on and what comes across. So our argument was purely intelligence-based, economics, geopolitics, accounting, everything was included. We had given every statistic. Now, business argument was, what is there in front of us? Fantastic rating and cash flow. So that now this is me and it is them. All right. So at the credit committee, huge debates had happened. And finally, some voting was taken and we won. The proposal did not go through. Nothing to be happy. The bank lost business. Okay, I'm not here to lose business. Let's be fair on that. But we did not go ahead. As usual, they went to some other bank. They gave them. I'm not commenting on that bank's risk appetite or anything. But I'm just giving you an example. That happened. Now, once that happened, it's done, right? It's done. 6-7 months later, elections happened. And exactly after the elections, new government came into power. And 4 months later, AA company becomes D, rating D. So the question that, and we were so happy that time that when all the 3 rating agencies gave D rating. So I just took those reports and I said, this is what has come today from all the rating agencies. Everybody was shocked. A companies whose 6-7 months ago cash flow was what was dependent upon for 125 crores lending that we were supposed to do over 3 years. And the rating rationale, it has all gone to dust. A company with 7 months was showing cash flows of remarkable stature. In 7 months, how did it become liquidity crisis? That's important, isn't it? Now, why this example was I'm giving is, there is something that is there in your hand when you look at the numbers, but there are certain other parameters also, external parameters that we looked at. They may be subjective in nature, but still helped us, whether you call it as a notional saving today or not, it depends upon every individual perception. Banker or the business person will always term this as loss of revenue because we did not do business. But in risk parameter, it becomes notional saving. We saved 125 crores, depending on how you. So that is why we are looking at all these skill sets together and coming to an environment where we are able to save money. By the way, this company today is a strike-off company on MCS database. The company has lost everything. All the assets of this company after this account went NPA, liquidity crisis, NPA. The theaters and the multiple screens was sold at bargain price and everything went. That's how it is. It's very simple. So this is one of the cases that I wanted to give you an example how we do it inside. So we are not here to, we felt happy that we protected the money rather than running after. See, it's like this in the saying that we say in the bank. It is, we cannot have good money chasing bad money. 125 crores loss would have been a bad money. Yeah. So that is how we look at forensic accounting. Within the say of banking, we work in forensics in these parameters. So the top 4 parameters are critical investigation environments, financial statement frauds. A lot of them we get. Almost, you can say, in a week, I would get 5 or 6 cases where I can detect financial statement manipulation or misconduct very clearly. Asset misappropriation. These are those borrowers whom we have lent to the money and they are misappropriated, called diversion of funds or various asset creation or money given for a certain cause, but not used for that cause. Then comes banking and insurance fraud. In the bank also, there are a lot of insurance frauds that happen. So that is another area. So you have retail, corporate finance, project finance. Project finance, one case that we had done, everything was done. And when I went without telling the bank, I went to see the site. The site was not even there. We actually said, bank बच गया, खोसला का घोसला होने वाला था हमारा. वो जगह ही नहीं थी. And when we asked the registrar to pull out the land bank papers, which took us 1 month, by the way, for that particular project, we realized that the project was in the panchayat's name. It was not in the name of the promoter also. So that is how you will have to look. It's not always there, but you will have to look at it very objectively. Computer forensics. This is the, of course, although it is old for us, but it is a new best thing. The type of fraudulent apps that are coming on your Android and iOS systems for loan sanctioning processes and all that. Really, I mean, it's very dangerous these days. So that is another area of investigation where banks really have to put high efforts. And more importantly, why? Because computer forensics, you cannot find a face. You are fighting a faceless criminal. That is the most worrisome part for us. You may be a good investigator. You may be a good auditor. But if you don't know on the other side who is there, whom are you going to produce in the court of law? That's the another point. Finally comes to the litigation part, like the IBC, insolvency and bankruptcy. There, when the account goes into an NCLT, we have bankruptcy and insolvency cases. There we do for a lot of asset tracing cases. Because lending has happened, the company is gone into doldrums. There is nothing left. But surprisingly, promoters' assets are increasing, which is interesting. Economic damages. There are other ways of looking at it for large scale profiles. One of the examples I can give, which is in public domain, is SR Group. These are economic damages that affect the exchequer, not just the bank, but the banking system as a large. Disputes. Even in the family law in the bank also, we have got to, there was a very simple case which we did. A loan against property was given, 5 crores. Everybody was happy, loan was coming on time. Banks do cross-selling. If I'm selling a loan against property, I'll give another loan. I'll give another loan. It's like cross-selling your business. So we did that. And surprisingly, when we got this assignment, we didn't do much of investigation because thankfully YouTube did it for us. And we saw in one of the YouTube videos that the people whom we had given the lending to, the loan against property, they were arrested by Air Intelligence Unit of the Delhi Police just 2 months ago. I took that video and showed it to the business head and said, you have given 5 crore loan to them. They are being arrested. Can you see it? He said, where is the business manager? Oh, where is the business head? Regional head. The regional head said, I have no clue. So you have no clue that your borrower, whom you have given 5 crores against loan against property, is in jail. Later, after 2-3 months, they came out on bail and everything was done. But the problem is the reputation risk has been damaged over here. Now, where the question is whether you would want to trust the financials or not. Now, here comes this is a biggest kicker that you will get. The CFO, a chartered accountant himself, surprisingly, we found he was the shareholder in that company later. So I said, why are we not checking the UBOs? And surprisingly, it was one of his firm and 2 other chartered accounting partners who were directors. So this is also another case. So then comes the biggest problem for our banker is, how do we know that the financials are reliable or dependable now? The promoters, after this case happened, 5-6 months, the loan came on time. In the 6th month, NPA, what we call as quick mortality, loan EMI stopped coming. So when we started investigating, we realized the startup, the couple who were there, they had parted ways. Now imagine where the bank is in the soup now. Now we are not only fighting a fraud, we are fighting this. And the worst part is it was the banks, they had an account in the banks and they had joint accounts, business joint accounts. So one brought a legal notice against the other, one brought legal notice against the other. Solving those cases is another problem. So you have to look at it from a litigation parameter also. How do you guide them? And not only that, the bank's loss is also there. And finally, the valuations. So many times in NCLT cases that we get, we have to use our valuation skill sets basically to understand the fair value of business. If the promoter raises his hand and said, look, I lost the business is gone. I give you the full control. As a banker, you do what you want. You can sell my machinery, my asset, my factory, you get good clients. So we have to do a fair valuation, what is possible, what is not possible. So that's where we help in the litigation to the legal team. So this is an area that we today work across in the BFSI sector. So what has the role of forensics changed from post GFC till COVID-19? I'm taking COVID-19 as a base because in my opinion today, business has started opening up, as we all know, slow and steadily. India is slowly firing on all cylinders after a gap of 2 years. To be precise, March 2020, it started, and today we are in 22. So 2.5 years or so. And the scary part is we have not seen the bottom yet, right? We have not seen the bottom yet. And that is why as a banker and as an auditor, I'm concerned with the macroeconomic approach. If the frauds start tumbling out now, it's going to be a big problem. So the role of forensic auditors has increased dramatically, if you ask me, post 2016. While forensic auditors were being called, doing business in the banking, but they were called only after, I used to say this to a lot of my teammates during my trainings. In the old Hindi movies, the old 70s and 80s, when everything happens at the end of the film or anything, police do jeep mein aate hai, aise aate hai, or choro ko ya unko pakad ke jeep mein le. That's all. That became the job. Today, thankfully, that role has changed. Today we will come on day 1. Film खत्म होने के बाद में नहीं आएंगे, अब पहले आएंगे, और वो भी इंटरवल के पहले आएंगे. That's my point. So we are in the game of things today. And because how we did these assignments, our learnings, we are able to convince RBI that, look, only a qualified forensic auditor can see this viewpoint. A normal banker who is focused on increasing his bottom line or top line will have his biased view. A credit assessment manager who does credit portfolio, but he still has to ensure that the sanction happens, he will have a biased viewpoint. We, on the other hand, have interests of the bank at large. We have the interest of as a custodian of public money, as I said before. Our biasness is not there. There is nothing for us to lose except reputation risk and trust, isn't it? That is why if you see the cases that affected India were DHFL, HDIL, Yes Bank, and to some extent, not in a bigger scale, but ICICI. We saw that. It was there all over the media. Everything was there. Most of us would know that. So our role has increased now. So where do we contribute today? Our first environment is identify the risk of financial manipulation and misconduct. Evaluate characteristics of entities and organizations. This never happened before. If you ask me, it was never there. Environmental characteristics. Look at your surroundings. When I used to do a presentation to the Indian Bank Association, they used to say something like, you know, जब प्रपोजल आता है ना तो सब पेपर पे काम होता है, लोग आदमी को देखना भूल गए, वो सिर्फ नंबर को देख रहे हैं, आदमी को नहीं देख रहे. ये बहुत बड़ी गलती होगी. That is what a PSU banker once told me at one of my seminars, that you may be right. We have stopped looking at people. We have started looking only at the numbers. And somewhere down the line, we are getting blindsided. And that was the problem. So environmental characteristics are also critical over here. And that is what we focus on today. And till 2015, if you ever manage to look at the fraud control requirements or compliance requirements of the regulator, you will observe that they followed control-based approach, risk control approach. 2016, post demonetization in India, forensic approach started to be used. That was the major shift. And today, where we are, it has become a more of a, or rather it is becoming a streamlined process. Weak, ineffective corporate governance, tick the box mentality currently prevailing in the Indian corporate sector. That nobody can deny. This is a fact. I think it's everywhere. I'm not sure about Bahrain. I have no experience over there, but somewhere down the line that corporate culture would also be there, but I'm not sure. Dominant personalities, larger than life images. You know, whenever we see larger than life images or a lot of things happening, we take 2 steps behind. We have to go a little bit in depth. That is one of our learning parameters. We have observed from all the forensic audits that we have done from 2010 to 2014, majority commonality was dominant personalities, and that became our focus area. We'll explain how we look into that also. So that's where we understood, how do you understand intelligence now? Now, you know forensics, you know how to look at information, you know how to look at numbers. But now let us understand how to look at intelligence. This is where market intelligence came into the picture. Although we started this as a pilot project in one of the private sector banks where I was working, actually I was more of a consultant to them. But when I actually sold out this idea that, you know, even the fraud happened in this XYZ manner, you already had the intelligence to stop it, because if you see this timeline analysis method, you will get to know that these were your red flags. But then the question was, these were not visible. I said they were visible, but they were in the public media and other domains. They were not on your financial statements. But then the question came, how do we know all that? That is not our area of expertise. And that was the idea which gave birth to market intelligence. How do you gather intelligence from a larger spectrum of events other than what you're looking at it. And that is how it is. So now this came as a problem because in the financial sector, in the banking, or whether it is insurance or whether it's any other sector, intelligence is little bit an alien concept. Okay, little bit of an alien. At least 7 years ago, it was an alien concept. We feel that when we do analysis or data analysis, that's intelligence. Surprisingly, let me honestly tell you, it is not. And I'll explain why also. So sometimes it's almost easier to describe what intelligence is not rather than what it. So I'll go to the reverse engineering way. It is not reams of database printouts, necessarily thick, densely written reports or proposals. And certainly, when I say intelligence, it is not bugging, stealing, or conducting surveillance. Okay, people feel many times, इंटेलिजेंस मतलब आप जासूसी करते हो क्या किसी पे? नहीं भाई, ऐसा कुछ नहीं. It is not like that. You are getting totally confused in that point, because that is where the definition or logic is getting mixed up. So in the most basic description, if you ask me what is intelligence, it's like analyzed information. I repeat, analyzed information. Okay, and that does also includes your financial analysis. Not only financial analysis, I repeat. So it is intelligence, not information, that helps bankers to respond with the right market tactic or long-term decision. Okay. So sometimes let me give you one simple example. In my case, many times when I do market intelligence analysis, for a large corporates, it may end up with a 25, 30 pager report. Or sometimes for a small or a medium enterprise or an MSME, maybe 2-page summary. So it is like you should not confuse volume with value. The importance of market intelligence is to give you a better position in taking a decision. Because ultimately, let me say this with utmost humbleness, that data analytics never tells you a fraud it is happening or not. It gives you or throws you some numbers. You analyze based on your intelligence whether this is fraud or not. That is how it works. And this has been observed in majority of our forensic audits that we have done. Because if we look at an audit and we go back to history, there's a saying, this is what I normally say, history is a place of reference, not a place of residence. You need to refer it in that manner that you are referring to. Don't make a house over there. Ghar mat banaiye wahan pe. Okay. So when you see these analytics or everything, if you go back to time when the account was going good, were there certain signals that you could have had? Yes. That's where I'm saying, if your intelligence was developed at that point of time, wouldn't you have taken a preemptive action to stop it? And that is what we are doing today. In the Indian financial sector since 2016-17, most likely 18 onwards, market intelligence is now become the major agenda for bank or RBI audits that happen. Even a forensic auditor today, if there is an NPA, you would give him the entire scope, you would give him entire overall understanding, but he will still come and ask you, आपने market intelligence report किया होगा तो उसकी copy भी तो दे दीजिए. This is what they are asking these days. They want to see not just what you have done here, but what you have done there. So unfortunately, the power of intelligence concept is often diluted because the term is ill-defined or misunderstood. So that's why I gave this understanding of what exactly is market intelligence. So this is the example that I was just giving you about how we look at it, right? So when you say data, what does the data mean? It means scattered bits and pieces of knowledge. For example, let us say a company, which you are taking an example here. The Dun and Bradstreet report told us that the company's competitors' plant had 100 employees. 3 years later, One of our salesperson passed by the company's plant and spotted 30 cars in the parking lot. Now look at this. This is a scattered piece of information by some sources. Let us take it, some sources. Second, information. Pooling of these bits of knowledge. Based on DNB and sales report, it appears that competitor has lost business. Look at the way how the logic seems to work. In 1990, 100 employees. Somebody went past there and he saw 35 cars. Logic becomes competitor lost business. However, analysis, the distilled information will be after gathering more operational information and running side-by-side profit and loss analysis, it appears that the competitor has become efficient. It exceeds industry standards and best in the class. Now imagine the difference between gap between data information and analysis, right? What you thought was negative in the first two stages is now becoming a positive action in the third stage. But the real decision maker will be the fourth stage, your intelligence. The implication that allows you to take the decision. This is my point. This is always we say in the bank, it is that when you look at numbers, you are not going to get the full intel. You will have to take a decision on those numbers and the information and the analysis. But what we were missing was the middle part, distilled information, or as we said, analyzed information. So now the competitor would make a good acquisition candidate. Its lean and mean structure would fit well with our current operation. So what started from scratch today has become a different viewpoint. So when you look at the numbers, that's why we say, as a forensic auditor, don't look only at the numbers, look what is behind those numbers. And this is how we look at it. And this has changed the perception of practical understanding of a credit portfolio. And that is where market intelligence contributes heavily these days. So now let's go with the regulatory definition of market intelligence. Regulatory. I was a part of that team which made a presentation to IBA and RBI at a later stage to understand that concept of how it works. So thankfully, the recommendations took our definition. Although, as I said, it may look to you as a rudimentary, but it has its own meaning, which I will take you through the further slide to understand how this works, especially in the banking and financial sector. So market intelligence in crude terms is the unstructured information available about borrowers from multiple source inquiries. Market intelligence is the external information relevant to a borrower and his associations with high-risk groups such as politicians, bureaucrats. I'm mentioning this, terrorists also. And you will be surprised, I'll give you one example again. I can't give you the names, but I'll give you the example. In one of the cases which we were doing in Punjab, a proposal of 100 crores. When we were doing a market intelligence analysis, we found that one of the significant beneficial owner, 33% ownership, was invisible person. So we started searching for an invisible shareholder. We did a lot of checks. We did all the RBI required checks, everything. And finally, we got some address, from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs database and everything. And we started sending our people on the ground. I also traveled to Punjab for a week or so and started doing on-ground understanding. So finally, we could not find anything about this person. Trust me, I did the unthinkable. I went to that area's police station, developed a rapport with a police officer, and I said, Sir ji, मुझे एक आदमी को ढूंढना है. ये आदमी का मैं आपको नाम और पता देता हूँ. आप कुछ बता सकते हैं क्या इसके बारे में? He said, क्या चाहिए? So हम बैंक से आए हैं, हमको जानना है, हमें ये आदमी नहीं मिल रहा है, हमको कहीं नहीं दिख रहा है. अच्छा. And 4 days later he called me and said, आप कहाँ हो? तो सर मैं तो अभी मुंबई आ गया हूँ. आपको वापस आना पड़ेगा. So what? I said, okay, but one of my team member is in Delhi, he can join you. Okay, उनको पहले भेज दीजिए. क्या वो सीनियर ऑफिसर हैं आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और बैंक के में? हाँ जी, सीनियर ऑफिसर है, रीजनल हेड है. इवेंट And he came back at night and he called me fanatically, sir, I mean, this is the problem. Sir, he's on the CBI's most wanted list. I said, what? A 33% shareholder of this company whom I'm about to lend is on CBI's most wanted list. Where is the list? And he showed me online on CBI's website, same photograph in the application form. And we are supposed to lend him 75-80 crores. Imagine. When we asked the police officer later, I traveled. After 2 days, I went back. I went to that officer's place and I said, sir, kuch explain kar sakte hai? What is the background of this? So he said, this person and this person belong to a anti-national outfit. They are wanted by CBI. Photograph aapke paas hai. Ye wahi banda hai. And we were so, I mean, you can say we were flabbergasted at that time that we don't know what to do now. Imagine if I had given him that 75 crores, I have no clue what would have happened. End use of funds. Would I be able to even monitor them? No. So, that's why I'm saying this was the last straw for us to do what we could do. And it clicked. You will agree, none of this could be possible on financials. Am I right? None of this could be seen on financials. Not only that, the larger risk to the bank itself, reputation risk, high reputation risk. After this assignment, we discussed with our chief risk officer. He was so saying that only God could have saved us and you people. What was the logic? Who told you to go to the police station? I said there was nothing. I could not find him. घर पे नहीं रहता है. लोग को पूछता है, कोई पता नहीं है. लोग पता नहीं आदमी कहाँ रहता है. I mean, at such point of time, what do you do at the end of the day? You go to that place only, no, where I went. What will you do if I can't find you? And one of my team members said, "Sir, अच्छा हो गया नहीं मिला ये आदमी. Thank God." So, these things happen. In banking, if you are getting such scenarios, it's going to be very difficult. But that's how we did it. None of this environment we did. Finally, we rejected that proposal. We rejected it in a technical manner, saying that we cannot do it because our exposure is already done and all. We can't tell the person, भाई हमको ऐसा मिला है आपके प्रमुख shareholder के बारे में. How can you say like that?
Nikhil ji, did you then hand over his other co-partners to the intelligence bureaus, whether police or others? Because most likely
yes, yes, of course. See, now when we get the information in the bank, we have something called as a task force. Okay. So bankers like us, like fraud risk managers or risk managers, we are a part of a task force group. When we got this information, first of all, we discussed internally whether there is a threats perception to us, my regional head in Delhi, and everyone, whatever we discussed it internally with the security officer. The security officer, thankfully, was an ex-military, the officer in our bank. He said, absolutely fine. Nobody knows this, only we know this. We informed the banking community that this company should not be lent to because this is what we have found. We make a report, we submit it to RBI. Very clearly, we submit it to the RBI. This is what we have found, corroborated from the local law enforcement sources, and we inform our fellow bankers. Very clear. And we did that. After that, that company or that lending was never to be seen. Because we were tracking it now, right? So we were tracking it. And finally, we could not do anything beyond this because there are limitations for us also. Huh? Please understand. We have limitations. And that is why we did not go further, but the matter ended over there. So this is what I'm saying. Where it helped us, we got information from very unconventional source. You will agree. What you call the last resource that was left from us. We tried everything in the book. Nothing worked. So that was why we are saying external information. This is becoming critical. And we do this very importantly. And we have realized based on these experiences and our learnings in the bank, daily learnings in the bank, that we have to check them also. So tomorrow when we go to the law enforcement officers, we tell them what we are doing and you give us this. There is nothing wrong. They give us the information. They are, after all, same as us, public servants. So they have to give it. So bankers need this information specifically for purpose of accurate confidence decision making in determining strategy to deal with borrowers. Remember, if they cannot completely avoid lending to them. In this case, we were able to avoid. But in some cases, I'm sorry, we cannot avoid, but we have to know these things in hand, if at all. Yes, so you had a question, right? I guess. Right.
Tanu had a question.
Sorry?
Mr. Tanu had a question, I
It's
guess.
answered. He had already answered it during the course of the session, sir.
Okay. Fine. Yeah. Okay. Just a minute. So, sorry, coming back to the point. So, now that we know what is the importance of market intelligence? So, market intelligence allows bank to estimate the magnitude of possible risk associated with the borrower and also the valuable understanding of intentions of the possible borrower. Actually, I'm looking at the screen only. Unfortunately, what happens is my laptop is a small one. So I've got a mirror image on my big screen on the other side. That's why I'm looking over there. That's why. So that anyway, so I'll have a look here itself. In spite of having a regulatory oversight and requirements, many times such intelligence inputs are ignored and or questioned as there is no evidence available to substantiate. This is what I was just saying to you. Many times there is a very actionable intelligence, but we can't use it because there is no evidence. So that's where it comes to the final line. You have to take a conscious decision. Okay. However, based on our historical analysis, the large and medium failures of borrowers reveal that the inner circle of the business knows different aspects of information, which was available way before your EWS were even activated. EWS is what we call as early warning signals, right? When an account starts showing stress. But before it comes to stress, there will always be some signs. This is why market intelligence becomes important. No doubt, banks should know their borrowers. We try to do it. All possible risks must be critically evaluated. For example, proposals, assessment, compliance. But what happens after that? Because if I give you the basic examples which I'm giving to you right now, Enron, Satyam, there were warning signals even before them, before they went bust. Even Gitanjali Gems or DHFL, Diwan Housing Finance, lots of warning signals were there, but bankers continued to lend to them. So what happens is when these risks are available to you, but you don't change the terms, then the question doesn't depend upon data analytics or analysis or forensics. It's a question of decision making. You have decided to do business, then these are the high risk, high reward kind of a scenario that you are taking. DHFL's total fraud today, as of March 31st, 2022, is 34,835 crores. Imagine. From 2009 onwards till 2018, before the entire organization went bust, the lendings to the banks, the creditors, is 34,000 crores, odd crores. This is what is the exact figure. So when we as bankers start to rely solely on financials and books of account, I will say that we are looking at a long rock. See, financials are not bad. I'm not saying that they are there, but they are historical document. They are more of informative, directional, but you can't find every answer in a spreadsheet, isn't it? So that becomes a one-dimensional assessment. And today we want a multidisciplinary approach. We can't depend only on the books of accounts. See, the game-changing intelligence comes from markets and the front line. That is how I'm saying. When I say markets, I'll give you one simple example. I spent 3 days in a week in Dalal Street, Mumbai's Dalal Street, 3 days. Every 3 days I spend. I need to know what is happening on the ground. I have exposure to various companies as borrowers, as a banker. I will go back into the street and I will see and talk to every broker, every sub broker. What is happening? What are you finding? Kya pata chal raha hai? Kyun kaise? Normally, the bankers don't tend to look at it. And please, I really don't watch CNBC at all because that is out of the picture. I am seriously, that is a separate game altogether. I do not want to get into it, at least at today's session. But when you go on the ground, on the front lines, you will understand what is happening in the companies. Realistically, what is happening. A lot of information is shared over there. And if you observe in the CFE's manual, Certified Fraud Examiner's Manual, 82% of the frauds were detected by tip or rumor. 82%. Only 12% were detected by internal audit or probably statutory audit. 82%. That's the average. 82%. So how do you get it? You have to be on the front lines. Market intelligence is what we were trying to say all this while to the regulator, that this is how we do it. Finally, this is what is the result. 2018, the white paper was circulated to the entire BFSI sector in India, all banks, public sector as well as private sector. Okay. And more importantly, the circular that came across in 2020, just 2 months before the COVID, unfortunately, but this is the circular. The RBI says that market intelligence must be dedicated unit. Mind you, you remember when I started the session, I told you, good to have and must to have. Initially, in the first 5 years, 2010 to 2015, 16, 17 rather, we were good to have. From 2017, 18, we became must to have. So that is the biggest change in the BFSI. So market intelligence unit as a part of risk management for enhanced due diligence on credit, funded and non-funded exposures. So the whole idea is banks, this is what the exact verbatim on that report sounds like. Banks have been advised to monitor unconventional sources of information on continuous basis, not only on the borrowing entity, but the group as a whole. This is the biggest victory for forensic auditors like us within the BFSI sector. That recognition has come in today, finally. So what are the types of intelligence, if you ask me? Okay. The first and the critical one is human intelligence, HUMINT as we call it. Typically gathered from credible and reliable sources discreetly without knowing the end use of information, which ranges from employees working for the borrower, competitor, sector specialist to banker to private equity, hedge fund, and finally, as we gave you an example, apex law enforcement to the constituents on the street. When I say the street, it means the Dalal Street or the financial markets. Second is raw intelligence. Many scenarios, information gathered about borrowers is required to be corroborated with financials and other information with the bank. So we look at corroborating whatever we get from external sources with the financial mapping. We call this as power mapping. So when we get external information, we try to map it in the numbers, the banking's financial numbers, which the company or the borrower has given us, to corroborate whether the intent is right or not. We may not get exact correct responses, but we still get a reasonable good responses. Third is technology. Technology intelligence has emerged beyond Google searches and desktop. I'm sure you must be doing, most of you would be relying on Google searches as the first resort. Let me honestly tell you, again, you are looking at the wrong rock. Google indexes only 1% of the available data on the World Wide Web. 1%. 99% is not even indexed. So you are looking at what they want you to look at. Simple. Whether it is your Microsoft Edge, Bing, or your Google, you are doing the same thing. Many people, normally say, my business team come to me, I searched about this company on Google. कोई भी नेगेटिव इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिला. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? इतनी मतलब so white company, nothing negative. Don't you think that is too good to be true in its first place. So that's where we say, okay, we will have a look at it. So what we do as market intelligence experts would be, we do deep web searches. Now, how do we do deep web? We use Tor network. We use Tor browsers. We use onion search engines. These are separate environments in technology where we actually get realistic information, not what Boolean operators like Google uses. We get variety of information. Trust me, so you will be surprised. In one of the searches which we did of one company, unaudited results were available in the form of PPT before the results were declared. Imagine, so much information is available, but this information you will never find in Google because they don't index it only for you to search. But if you use correct parameters on the technology platform, you are going to get wonders. Lot of intelligence is got from that area. So technology intelligence plays a major role for us. And finally, actionable intelligence. What is an actionable intelligence? The information that can be followed upon with further implication that strategic plan should be undertaken to make positive use of the information that has been gathered. Intelligence inputs on basis of possible regulatory action gives a useful insight about the borrowers. Now, let me explain to you with a small example. A company which was doing business with us, it was going good. So that means nobody was having any problem or something or anything. It was just a small local media article in one of Gujarat's local newspaper, not your Times of India, Economic Times or any big newspaper, local regional newspaper. See, I don't understand Gujarati, but a lot of people and my colleagues do understand. I asked them that we have found this search from one of our sources. I need you to read into it. So they read it and said, "Ye to local police and has been arrested for a possible money laundering case." But how this company's promoter has not come in the larger papers if it is a money laundering case? So that's where we came into the idea that we need to go to the depth of it. So we went and checked with the local resources. We used our contacts, like I said, in the police station and all, and we found out an FIR on that promoter. And that FIR stated that he was running a Hawala racket. That is how you get these kind of information. Not everything will be available on databases or on financial. So you have to use these type of networks also. So like we use CBI, SFIO, enforcement, EOW, DRI, GST intelligence wing. Many times, if you even look at the Twitter account of GST India, you will find the action taken by GST in attaching assets of these fraudulent companies for input tax credit fraud. So if you look at that and you start looking at your borrower, you will certainly find some account with them yourself. At least you know this is an actionable intelligence to you. Otherwise, people see Twitter for different purposes. We investigators see Twitter only for government purposes. What is the action that government is taking? What is the action enforcement is taking? For us, this is like a gold mine. And finally, to come to the last part of our session, please understand, buildings, computers, mobile softwares don't come and flow. People do. Please look at people. So what is HUMINT? A little bit more understanding or a drill down approach. HUMINT is collection of information from people. It is comparatively the most inexpensive part of collection, but remains the most important part of decision making. HUMINT is a vital commodity. It's let me say, I'm putting it in very crucial terms. It is a vital commodity, information. I'm sure if any one of you watch Reliance's AGM, when Mr. Ambani comes to talk, when he talks about Geo, he uses this word. Information is a vital commodity. He uses this word really often. So you get learning from there also. especially in times of uncertainty. For a bank, uncertainty is my loan going bad. That's a very critical point. Collecting human can be compared to a journalist, or I would rather put it here as an investigative journalist who uses his skill in cultivating sources and persuading them to talk. That's how it works. Intelligence systems succeed in an organization because people, not computers or software. Excel, PPT will only throw what you are giving it, isn't it? The output is what you are putting it, but what is not available is how do you get that? So now your question ideally would be, how do you build your own intelligence? How do I build it? It's very simple. You should go back to history. I think Sharmila used to started the first ever fraud went back ages ago. I'm going similar 400 years back to this gentleman called Nathan Rothschild. We all know Rothschild, the person who said, I don't care who runs the country, just give me the control of his currency. That the family. So he is a merchant banker who received his early warning signals of how to make money in Napoleon's defeat in Waterloo through carrier pigeons. जिसे हम हिंदी में कबूतरबाजी कहते हैं. Imagine that time there were no computers, no? That time there was pigeons. So one of his correspondents on the continent. So he has his own network of that time. So making it appear as if he heard Britain will lose the war, he quickly dumped all British-backed securities in the market. Everyone else followed him. However, when the market bottomed out, he brought back every piece of paper at fire sale prices and made a killing out of it. You will ask me, did he rely on numbers or books of accounts at that time also? No, he relied on a pigeon. So if you ask me today, what has changed in time? The pigeon has become technology. That is where you need to look at. So if Nathan Rothschild could receive an early warning signal in Napoleon's defeat by using nothing more than a carrier pigeon network, the modern corporations, large and small, with lightning fast technologies at their disposal can do the same in today's corporate environment. Aren't we doing that? We are actually doing that. We are trying to build that network. So all organizations need an organized network of people. So that's what I believe is your network, is your net worth today. Very simply put, because my experience in the BFSI sector over the last decade in protecting and preventing fraud is using my network to prevent that. So when I say in my presentations and many times in the finance bank also, that in a year we did assignment on 75 accounts. In 75 accounts, I saved 50. That's how the logic is. And later, see, in corporate frauds, you will agree that no fraud happens tomorrow morning or 1 quarter, 2 quarter, or 3 quarter. It will build up over a period of time and then it will crash remarkably. So that incubation period is between, on an average, 5 to 7 years in today's time. So you have to be very early to decide and look at that exposure. So what is our prime philosophy? The intelligence never travels in straight line. Chances are that the vital pieces of intelligence will have entered your company in different ways and directions as it travels through the organization. A piece of news is seldom known only to one person. We feel normally that ये information शायद किसी को पता नहीं होगी, वो सिर्फ मुझे पता है या उसे पता है. ऐसा नहीं होता है. There will always be somebody. It's about your skill, how you develop it, who knows it, how you get it out. Therefore, what you can do by building a broad network communication vehicles that can capture and speed along the critical intelligence. This is how you will be able to protect your segment very effectively. And finally, let me put this to you, the depth and the scope of information intelligence that exists on people, business is staggering. Okay, very, very huge amount. In the old days, it used to be mostly on paper, but today has turned into cyber, bits and pieces. And frankly, it is managed by governments and private companies. So these trails, if you are able to get control over it and you are able to analyze it in a larger picture, trust me, your holistic view will change, like we saw in that example. You will not be dependent on only the top 2 or top 3 parameters. You will have achieved the 4th level also. Okay, so that is how a market intelligence works. And when we say, or RBI tells us, you should do enhanced due diligence, this is exactly what we are doing in the bank. We use a forensic, your market intelligence, to combine and do a due diligence. Meaning, we measure, when I do a due diligence, I mean measure the prudence, activity or assiduity as is properly to be expected from and ordinarily exercised by a reasonable and a prudent person. I again put it very clearly, reasonable and prudent person under particular circumstances, not measured by absolute standard, but depends on relative facts. This is what we do, enhanced due diligence. Numbers are one side for me, these are the other sides. And then I would be able to make a proper decision in the larger picture. And this helps me, and we have been quite successful over the last 6 years to prevent frauds where we have done a proper market intelligence and forensics. But finally, we come to this basic part over here. What are my lending? Where am I having a problem? This is where a banker has a problem. First, lack of, and this is, if you see, it is an inverted pyramid, right? It's an inverted pyramid. So that's where my problem starts. First, lack of transparency. Difficult to attain management's track record as public data is frequently not available, which is a fact. Not available to take a call. 2, no independent oversight. Financial crimes are typically seen as internal company issues. 3rd, as we said again, political connection. Asset today, liability tomorrow. How does a bank decide? That's another question. 4th, reputational. Accounting fraud is a real risk. The reputation of an investment target or partner, or in the bank's case, a borrower, is very important, not just from financial aspect, but from reputation also. Because you know what happens. Yes Bank, a share price which was as good as 300 came down to 12 rupees per share. So you know how worst thing can happen to you. And it was a nightmare for all the community. As a banker, I can tell you that it was a nightmare, not just for Yes Bank people or the staff or the shareholders at large, but also for the community as such. And that becomes a big problem. Complex network, sales, procurement, personnel, large third-party network, agent, distributor, loosely shell companies, and most important, friends. Creditor and debtor is your mother-in-law, father-in-law. Imagine. हमने ये भी पकड़ा है. Creditor भी, debtor भी. We have gone to build a family tree of one family where we have found 4 levels of cousins as creditors and debtors. First generation, second generation, uncle, auntie, उनके 2 बच्चे, उनके 2 बच्चे, वो कर करके हमने दिखाया कि भाई ये creditor और debtors है आपके. पूरा पैसा फैमिली में ही घूम रहा है ऐसे. And that's how it is. So yes, it's a complex network, but that's how we do it. So this is the simple steps, 3 major steps: open source intelligence, media, and public record. Meaning local, international, press archive, specialized corporate database, search engine. Search engine means not just Google, we go beyond that. Corporate files, litigation records, media information. We also rely heavily on media. International blacklist databases. So we use everything that is available in media and public records. Second, after we get it, public record information cannot be considered comprehensive. Of course, it cannot be. We agree with that. As investigators, we agree because this is India. We agree. Har baar, you cannot rely on them. So we have to go to the next level. You filter it. It's like a titration process for us. But Wherever possible, we will supplement it to corroborate it by actual file retrievals and everything, wherever possible. And finally, the third, source inquiries and human intelligence. This is the network that we use, human intelligence. So we can have subcontractors, sector special. So tomorrow, if you want to have some information about how the oil and gas segment is working, what are the key risk factors, we will talk to these experts. We will tell them that if I have a client or a borrower who is doing this activity, is this legal or is this illegal? It is playing under the radar. Is my client doing arbitration in between without my knowledge? All these questions that you have can be found out. So that is why you use human intelligence directly through interpersonal contact, which I said, your network is your network. And most importantly, after this will be indirect collection methods. We use a lot of indirect collection, right, from various environments, and then we filter it down. Okay, so this is how we combine forensics, the basic of forensic auditing, our learnings with market intelligence to come to the outcome. And I think if we have some time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, we can discuss 2 case studies of how this actually works on the ground. Okay. So that would be the conclusive part of the entire presentation, but the case studies which we can just share with you if you look at it.
So this was 5-7 minutes.
Sorry?
Can we conclude in 5-7 minutes, please, with the case study?
Yes. Yeah, this there are just 2 case studies, so it will be easy for you also to understand how it has been done. Right. So this was a basic risk. The risk team in the bank raised a red flag on 2 independent directors from the same business being associated with the key promoter and those directors' doubtful background as financial data was insufficient. So your financial data did not have clarity on their role. So what we did was we started with discrete inquiries that revealed, surprisingly, even my business team did not know that the key promoter is a politician. That is the most important part. And the other director were his proxies. Now you will ask me, how did we get to know that they were proxies? So the first part is looking at the promoter's background. Since the company was promoted, it was a MFI. MFI means microfinance institution based out of Chennai. The ruling person was a part of the opposition party and he had other side businesses, brick manufacturing and various other things. So what we did is we started looking at those partnership firms as well as those proprietorship firms as well as private limited. And one thing we found common. These 2 independent directors on the MFI were shareholders, significant beneficiaries, and in some case, ultimate. So the link was established, first of all. The second part, the promoter is doing microfinance lending, but at the same point, he is also doing brick manufacturing. So we started asking the promoter, could you give us your lenders, borrowers whom you are lending this money, some details. So they gave a sample of 200 loan accounts that they had. You know what was peculiar about that loan accounts? PIN codes. The PIN codes were common. We segregated the PIN codes by the location. And when we found those PIN codes, 45-50 people are in the same PIN code locality. So we went on the ground and started asking questions that we are from this institution. आपने ये लोन लिया है क्या? हाँ लिया है. किसने दिया? वो तो पता नहीं, वो तो हमको ये तो पार्टी से मिला था. I said, what party? कौन सी पार्टी? बैंक ने तो लोन दिया, आपको पार्टी से कैसे लोन मिलेगा? नहीं, we are supporters of this political party, so उस पार्टी ने हमको लोन दिया. I said, how can it be possible? A political party cannot give loans to borrowers. So that's where we started understanding that these people were the supporters of that political party who were given loans through MFI. So these are not genuine loan borrowers. They are workers who are showing numbers, fake numbers, to increase the book size. So that's where we took these samples and we understood that they were all part of brick manufacturing firm, assembly line workers. That's the second part. Third, those two independent directors, we went into their history, legacy issues, and we found out that in somewhere in, I think, 2001 or 2, both these directors were arrested by TN police for chit fund scam. Of course, there is no data now because it is 20 years old information. But we went as far as going for the legacy issues के इतिहास में इन्होंने क्या किया है, तो हमको इंटेंट तो पता चले इनका. So if you are a repeat offender, I need to know. I cannot rely on what your financials are for 3 months or 3 years or 5 years by looking at the current numbers. I need to know your intent. So when we found this information, we immediately rejected this proposal. In COVID, let me assure you, this account became an NPA in COVID because, as you know, COVID disrupted microfinance business completely. And when there is no business, automatically the accounts or people or borrowers will not pay the EMIs. And if they are not paying the EMIs, the company, but later it was found by the same bankers that this was a fraud. But we had picked it up 4 years ago and we rejected that loan. So that is what is I'm saying notional saving. See, COVID was a scenario which was out of the picture. It was never in the picture. If there was no COVID, probably the cycle would have continued. Genuinely continued. But something came in and the fraud came to light. But we found this long before. That's the one part. The second case was another one that we can say. We did this information on third party. We call it as KYCC. You must be aware of the concept, KYC, know your customer. We go one step ahead. We do KYCC, means know your customer's customer. That is your buyer and supplier. So now what happened is this case was declined by myself in 2013. You know, na, business will never let go. Business to manta nahi hai na bolenge to na ko wo haan hi samajhta hai. So they will come after 4 years. I am back and they will get the same proposal. This time they came back saying, look, you rejected it last time because they had a debt recovery tribunal cases against them. Look, the debt recovery cases have been resolved and now they are back into the business. I said, if the debt recovery cases are resolved, there is less amount of trust already in that. They have resolved it by settling the case. Okay. So basic thing is that this is not, no, but if the public sector banks are giving them money and have taken 200 crore exposure, I told maybe the bankers are dumb. They have not done their due diligence. I can't say about somebody else's what they are doing. But my point is, we know that they had a problem. You want to lend them again after 4 years? No, but the problem is solved now. So let us do it. I said, we will do a due diligence again to see the current standard. Again, the numbers were, as you said, too good to be true. So when the numbers are too good to be true, I have to go to my, after forensics are done, I have to go to my market intelligence. So what happened after that? So we said, look, the promoters, we already know about them. Let us go one step ahead. Let us look at their customers. So we asked them, give us your top 5 buyers and your top 5 suppliers. And we did not do a sample check. We went to all top 5 buyers and all top 5 suppliers. And this is what does the outcome. Imagine, in one company which the client or the borrower claimed as the largest supplier and buyer to him, that company is in dormant state. There is no activity in the company. No media, no digital footprint were traced. The site visits to the address revealed that no such company exists or is known in the area also. Finally, as you know, our best friend, law enforcement, because he is in DRT, na, so I said, अगर इसका कोई केस बना है, तो यार इनका भी केस बना होगा. चलो, उनको पूछते हैं. And they said, अरे हाँ, we know he is already arrested 2 years ago for money laundering by Enforcement Directorate. Now look at this. 200 crores by PSU banks given on basis of numbers without knowing whether the vendors or suppliers are genuine or not. Second part, the second company was, although active, no media footprint. Directors were inactive on any social platform based on email registered with MCA. The address was traced to the company secretary. We traced that address to a company secretary, and the company secretary was a director himself in 35-40 companies. And we started searching for this company secretary. Bhai, kidhar hai? Where are you? We could not find him. We wrote an email to that ID also, but he did not respond. Nothing came in. And all the 35 companies are in the same address. So it is a shell company. So largely, we were able to prove that the customer's customer are fraudulent and non-existent in nature. So what type of business will they be doing? When we asked the question to the promoter, surprisingly, the promoter declined to process the loan. He said, it's okay, we don't want it from you. That was the response. Another 100 crores saved. So this is how we receive information and intelligence, which we corroborate with our largely numbers. Okay, so that is how we see the last decade, where we have managed to get two platforms together: early warning signals as well as forensic auditing skill sets, and merging them to bring this environment where we are able to prevent it rather than wait till it happens and do a post-mortem. So that is the largest picture that I can say on the forensic accounting and market intelligence, which we use today. And thankfully, I'm really thankful to the regulator for accepting this as a concept and bringing it to the banking system in India. This is not non-existent. We managed to get it after a decent fight for almost 6-7 years. You know, getting the regulator's consent is a big task. So finally, we succeeded in that. And well, that would conclude my overall presentation today in the the subject that we are looking at. So
thank you, Mr. Parulkar,
yes,
for this insightful session.
yeah.
So I think we don't have any questions in the chat box yet. So
Yeah.
we can move ahead to our quiz. So this
Right.
quiz will be based on your presentation that you have presented, and all of our members will join us.
Yes, I think we have one question here. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Once again.
Do you think the absence of adequate protection for whistleblowers is as in most countries to say news whistleblowers in India? Unfortunately, yes, you're right. We are working on it. We have said a lot of scenarios where whistleblowers help us. They need to be protected. That's why many times if you see in our reports, when we give it in the bank, we don't write names. You know how we start? I'll give you a small example. Discrete source inquiries conducted with a credible and reliable sources from the apex law enforcement agencies. We write like this. We don't say the name because we know that, as you rightfully said, the whistleblower scenario is non-existent. But you will also agree that we need that at today's time. But it's a work in progress, if you ask me. Yes.
One question I would like to ask from the audience perspective, and
Please.
discussions that went on and the time that you took to give us an idea of what's necessarily done from a forensic investigation accounting part as well as an audit part or a post-mortem part. But when it comes to these proposals that you vet, generally they will be under tremendous pressure from the business front or the sales front saying that, boss, I want it day before yesterday, not yesterday also. So yes, how do you find time to first collect all this information in the acceptable turnaround time that would be there as a KPI for you, number one?
Yeah.
And two, not just collection, corroborating it or making sense out of it, because as you said earlier, it is analyzed information.
Right.
So not just collecting it, but then putting it in a manner where you would be able to take a decision and pass on that information to the respective business heads or unit head, as the case may be. So that's saying that either go ahead or not go ahead. So how do you find that and your timeline challenges?
Yes. The average time frame we in the bank, which we observe, is around 10 to 12 working days we put it. We don't calculate the weekends for obvious reason. But frankly speaking, we do work, but we don't calculate it. That's the point. But how do we get the information beforehand? The first part is every business has a pipeline. Clearly, this pipeline is normally shared with the business and the credit, depending upon the scenario of disbursals that are required to be done within that span. So as I said, I'm a part of the risk management team. So when we were a part of the risk, the credit already has this information long before when the touch base has happened. So there is a basic team who evaluates the preliminary aspects of the credit part. When they sense something fishy, immediate at that moment, it is passed on to my team. My team starts work from there and there onwards. So we have a little bit edge before actually the process comes to that level of disbursal or approval. So we already have an edge. And that is the time where try to work our wonders, as you can say, how we will try to get it. So that time everybody is on field, including myself. I am not much of an office cubicle person. I normally tend to be out on the markets much more because the lot of information is available. Yes, it is a task to carry out. So what I do is, whenever we get information, sometimes you will find non-relevant information also. It's not that everything that you go into the market, you will find relevancy also. You find non-relevant. So what we do something which one of my former line managers in consulting, who was a military personnel, he told me, we do something called as cataloging information. So if you find something, you develop a platform or a parameter internally to catalog that information. Today, it is non-relevant. Don't be surprised that 1 year later, your business will mind you get that same proposal on your desk. So you have something to start off with. You do not need to reinvent that wheel again. So certain environment in my team, when I get information, I said, look, the market says that 2-3 sub brokers and one senior broker said, ये company पे ध्यान रखो, ये company आगे चल के कुछ करेगी, ये अच्छी नहीं है, इसमें कुछ problems है. So I tell my team, note it down, catalog it, get a background check done, immediately get it done and start streaming it. Go ahead. Let us see what comes out. You never know that this could be a liability bank account in your bank, or it could be a proposal for a wholesale lending in your bank. You never know. It could be a loan against property. It could be any product of your bank that you could be. So if it is in your watch list today, it will help you to, my line manager tell me, the military fundamental, he says is, sweat in peace, sweat in peace, sweat in peace. You bleed less in war. That is what he was trying to tell me, that when you catalog this information today, when the real time comes, you do not need to reinvent it again. You can just take it from where you left off and then you can do the wonders. That was the logic that he had given. So we do that. So the challenges are maintained. Yes, other than initial due diligence.
Yes. Due to time issues, Nikhil, can we take only one question?
Okay,
so
sure.
After this, we can move ahead to our quiz.
Absolutely.
So this is a question from Nath.
Yeah. Other than initial due diligence process, are the banks having ongoing mechanism process relevant? Yes, yes. That is called as post-transaction due diligence. Yeah. When an account goes to an EWS scenario or preliminary, I come there also, huh? But this time I'm not doing due diligence. Why? Because the money has gone. See, I can't recall it back. Now I have to look at remedial measures now. So the remedial measures would involve me to do a forensic investigation on the accounting, banking, as well as asset tracing engagements. Here, I'm not trying to protect the money before going. Here, I'm trying to recover after going. So the methodology little bit changes. But yes, that process is there. We have developed that also. So we are taking care of, see, if you have 10 assignments, you can save 8. Certainly 2 will get missed. Agreed, they have got missed, but you are keeping a track of it so that it does not go to the worst case scenario, maybe a year or 2 later. So that is the thing. And this is what is helping banks today to curtail their NPAs. We would not wake up after everything is done. We have got a strategy in place. We have got it. We have got recovery mechanism. Asset tracing is one thing that we do effectively. Many times we find assets of the PGs, personal guarantors, corporate guarantors and everything, and then do a debt recovery attachments and everything. So somewhere down the line, you try to recover whatever you can't get 100, even 40, 50 is a decent price to get after this. So you save some, you lose some, but you recover some that way. Yes. Yes, Abhishek.
Thank you, Nikhilji. Thank you, Stanu, Joseph, and Nath for your questions. And thank you, Mr. Parulkar, for this insightful session. It was
Most
really
welcome.
great experience to listen and learn from you about the in-depth about the auditing and the forensic analysis.
Yes.
So now if we move ahead, then we have prepared one quiz based on your presentation. So
Right.
I now request our quiz master, CA Sumit Khopkar, to conduct the quiz. And I request everyone to be ready with the Kahoot app for the quiz. As I already mentioned in the starting of our presentation, that you will need two devices, one to read the question and one to answer the question. CA Sumit, please, over to you.
Thank you, Sri Abhishek. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Please,
Okay,
please.
thank you. I'll be sharing my screen. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, yes, we can see.
Yeah. So I have already generated the game pin, and as Abhishek mentioned, you have two ways of getting into. One, you can use the app, or you can in the Google you can type kahoot.it and you can enter the game pin. Please enter your membership number followed by your name. Our star batsman has just entered, Mr. Ajay. So all the questions are very easy. They are within the syllabus.
I can also have an idea after this beautiful session. Many of our participants will answer correctly, because he explained so well. Sumit, I think we are good to go now. We can start.
Yeah.
Okay, I will lock. Here we go. The first question, which date was the first CSR event conducted by BCICA for 2023? 5th August, 12th August, 6th August, 19th August. I hope most of you should get it correct. So only one person got it correct. It was 6th August. Abhishek. Next question. Mr. Nikhil is visiting faculty in which IIM? This was mentioned in his profile, and also Abhishek did mention that. Oh, good. Most of you got it correct. Leaderboard change. Ajay is on top, followed by Sharmila and Bappa Namori. Next question. 12th August Azadi race conducted by BCICA was of what type? A hurdle, marathon, relay, or none of the above? Good. Again, it's really good to see that all of you are following all the initiatives that our EXCOM is doing. Ajay again on top, followed by Sandeep. Mr. Nikhil is CFE. What does CFE stand for? Certified Fraud Expert, Forensic Examiner, Forensic Expert, or Fraud Examiner? Yeah, this was slightly tricky. It's Certified Fraud Examiner. Ajay still on the top. It's a double point question. Dash World Congress of Accountants 2022 will be held in Mumbai from 18th to 21st. Is it 18th, 22nd, 21st, or 19th? Yeah, it's 21st. Ajay still on top, followed by Sanjeev and Joby. Next question. Mr. Nikhil investigated a multi-core e-ticketing fraud at Kingfisher Airline, tuning to INR. This was mentioned in his profile shared with all the members. I hope you guys have read his profile. Yeah, 3 of you got it correct. It was 14 crore. Ajay still on top, followed by Sanjeev. Mr. Nikhil Saraj, Chief Manager and Head Credit Intelligence Unit of which bank? This was again mentioned in his profile. Two of you got it correctly. It was Kotak Mahindra Bank. There is change in leadership position. Ajay still there, followed by Joby and Josefa. What are the type of intelligence as mentioned by Mr. Nikhil in his presentation? This is a very easy question. Good. It seemed that all of you were very present in the session. No change. Let's go ahead. It's a true or false question. Is reputation of the investment target oblique lending one of the key lending risk for banks? True or false? This was mentioned by Mr. Nikhil in his presentation. Good. Most of you got it correctly. Ajay still on top, followed by Joby and Josefa has 3 correct answers in a row. What is the amount of total lendings of DHFL, which is now NPA? This was again mentioned by Nikhil. $34,000 crores is the correct answer. And in fact, it was it was declared NPA in 2019, if I'm correct, Mr. Nikhil.
Yes, yes. Actually, the NPA happened in 2016 and 17.
Okay.
How much time to declare?
Next, BCSI would be extending the VOCA conference with the leisure activities to which place? Lavasa, Khandala, Lonavala, Mahabaleshwar.
LPOD मिस किया उसमें.
Let's see how many of you listen to Sharmila. Oh, good. Ajay still on top, followed by Joby. Which committee of RBI provides recommendation on how to control fraud? HY Malegaon, YM Malegaon, YH Malegaon, or MY Malegaon? Good. That is good to see. Ajay still on top, followed by Joby. Sandeep again coming back in third position. In which year Ramalinga Raju wrote letter to BOD accepting the fraud? This was also mentioned by Mr. Nikhil. I think it was in January 2009, if I'm correct.
Yes, 7th of January or 9th of January, 7th or 9th of January 2009.
I remember it very correctly as we were the auditors. I was working with Pricewaterhouse at that time.
Okay. There is an interesting story here. So if you have after this, just a small one.
Ajay, Joby, Sandeep. In true or false? Is geopolitics a skill set for forensic investigator? This was again mentioned by Mr. Nikhil. True or false? False. And the last question, I want 100% right answers. And it's a double point question, the last question. CA Sharmila Seth is the dash chairperson of BCICAI.
Female chairperson.
21st, 24th, 25th, or 20th? We need to find this blue and the green guy. Thank you so much. Let's see the podium. Stan, if you can take the screenshot, please.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Your third place, Nisha and Ajay on top. Congratulations, and your commitment points would be credited. I will stop sharing my screen and over to you, Abhishek.
Just a small, Abhishek, just a small thing.
Yes,
While
yes.
speaking about Satyam, actually, I was doing my final semester in Sydney at that time. You are aware that Sydney is normally 4.5, 5 hours ahead of India. So I was already having my dinner at that time, and just my lecturer, my dean and my main lecturer, they both were on call. They called me at 8:30. In Australia, no one will call you at 8:30 p.m. at night. India में हो सकता है, उधर नहीं call करेगा. So I picked up, I am comfortable. So I said, first of all, Nikhil, apologies. I called you at an unearthly hour and all this. I said, ma'am, it's already fine. It's okay. I'm just watching television. Yes, so hope you know what is happening in your country. I said, what? I have no clue, ma'am. What one of your largest technology person has just written a letter and he has said that he has done a fraud worth millions of dollars. I said, what? Yeah. I mean, that Satyam company. I said, yes, Satyam is a well-known Bangalore-based IT company. It's in the top 3 and 4. Yes, yes. You are watching television. What are you watching? Switch on to that news right away. I said, okay, we'll do that. And they were repeating it in channel 9, that is the news channel in Australia, consistently, that a letter has been sent. And so the next day when I went back to the Monday, when I went back, he called me in his cabin and he said, you know, your research project is decided last night, you see. You will do your research project on Satyam. I said, the fraud has just happened. My research project was decided 2 months ago with Dean. I said, no. It has changed now. Situations change, time change. So now you will do this. So the next 6 months, whatever India investigation was going on, media, this and that, I was sitting over there and coordinating with my people in India, saying, "Arey, kya ho raha hai? Kaise ho gaya? Kya kiya? Kya nahi kiya? Kuch mila? Kaise mila?" And I had to prepare my final research on Satyam. That was said, I will grade your final marks on Satyam, not on the one that you have decided. This is your case. We want, because I was the only Indian student in that entire course 12 years ago. So they said, अब तुम यही करोगे. इसी को तुम अपना project मानो, and you will give me outcomes of this, what went happen. I had to study for 4 months for my research project, 4-5 months. So that is why it's an interesting story for me. अच्छा खासा डिनर के बाद बैठा था, टीवी देखा, तो अचानक कॉल आ गया, मेरा प्रोजेक्ट ही बदल दिया उन्होंने.
You should have contacted Sumit at that time. Sumit was auditor at that time at PwC.
Yes, it would have been so easier. I would have managed to get my project done in 1 or 2 months maximum.
Yeah.
But here, lot of efforts, consistent calling back to India, video calls, Skype, asking for data. Some people said that I've got one report, which is an open source report. I said, please bind it and courier it to my address in Australia, and everything coming from India, and I'm doing my report over there. So that was how it is. And he said that why we gave you is, this is a live case. If you are able to make a good academic point of view on a live case, it makes sense. See, anyone can do a post-mortem on any other cases in Australia, I tell you. If I tell you to do it on Bond Corporation or Harris Staff, you will do it. I am comfortable with that. But this has happened, and it has happened in your own country. So you better do it this way only. So I said, okay, got a good, decent grade on that. So I can say.
We are very sure about it. But thank you, Mr. Nikhil. Thank you.
Sure. Really, absolutely. Please.
It was really good experience listening you, and thank you for sharing your experience. And I totally agree with you that the practical experience is the best teacher that a person can have than from the theoretical knowledge. So thank you, Mr. Nikhil. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And so with that, we end our session today. And I would like to thank our esteemed guest, Mr. Nikhil Anand Parulkar, for enlightening up with this great insight. I would also like to thank our BCICM members for making this session a great success. Thank you all. Happy Ganesh Chaturthi once again, and have a good night.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sharmila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Nikhil,
Thank you,
Govinda.
Nikhil.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, actually.
Same here. Same.
Hope to see you soon
Thank you,
again.
Yes, certainly, absolutely.
Once we are in Mumbai in November, we will surely plan a visit to your office.
Please do. You
We
have
can-
my contact coordinates. Please do.
Yes.
Would love to have you over here.
Sure.
Yes.
See you now.
Have a good night, Mr. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.